about damage documentation which we have done in Brihadishwara Temple, Tanjavur, Big Temple or Brihadishwara Temple, Gangaikonda Chodapuram, Kailashanatha Temple, and we have done damage mapping in Show Temple as well. So we initially, when we went to the temple, we will not see, we will just speak about the architecture, it's iconic standing there, and we will be mesmerized by its magnificent architectural features and the structure which is standing there. But we will miss out to read the damages which has happened there. The temple is basically getting aged. That is the real reason behind all these damages happening there. So we intentionally put all these vibhutis and stuff on the material and make it unbreathable. So it's the soiling which happens because of us. That's why anthropogenic actions. And other things like breakout or scaling or discoloration is all naturally done because of the aging of the material or by the rain or other activities which inevitably naturally happens. So we have also found some other cracks and stuff because of the material weakness and also because of the structural weakness in the main tower. We have seen several cracks, and due to bad excretion there is a huge discoloration happening inside the circumambulatory space in the first floor level of the temple inside this tower. So also in the Tiruchutru Maligai we have found several problems with the stones. They have all replaced them, but the major issue is that the inscriptions which cannot be replaced, they required a mending technique to be done. So as a team from IIT Madras, we have put forward a stone stitching method to mend these things with the use of stainless steel reinforcement for stone, and we also use lime mortar or all the reversible type of techniques to be followed, which should be organic in conserving a monument. So in order to keep it organic, so we used only lime mortar or combination mortar to that for that purpose. And this is about Brihadishwara Temple. It also had several issues similar to Big Temple Tanjavur. As the material is same, granite, it had all the similar issues, and it doesn't leave much of the moisture ingress or something, so it is still more stronger than any other material. So this is another set of weathering form which is still not, they are not still able to find a solution for Kailashanatha Temple, Kanchipuram. They tried to fix all the issues. The material is totally crumbling right now. So they tried to fix it up with lime mortar and brick, but still it's not working. It's not really blending with the original structure. So they're still in the pursuit of finding a proper conservation method for this temple. And regarding damage mapping, we have done damage mapping for Show Temple. Since the structure is a little smaller, it was quite easier for us to map this, and as it is quite expensive to map all these things, so we just have chosen the southern side, which is most affected side among all the 4 sites. And then we have first documented the material, what were used in that particular temple, and then we have categorize them into 2, like loss of stone material and damages happened due to discoloration or deposits. And we completely did photo montage because we used a software called Meticomap, which requires elevation form of a photograph, which doesn't take any other without any defects like skew or tilt or something like that. So they wanted elevation, so we had to fix scaffolding, and then we have to shoot it from top to bottom. So about 250 photographs we have taken, and we have montaged them together into a single elevation. And then we have taken that into the software, and that software is a mix of AutoCAD and Photoshop together. So it has been imported from Germany, and we have used it for quantifying the damages. Generally, we just document it with photograph. Here, with this software, we will be able to quantify the damages. So the both categories, we have documented them, and then we have quantified that in the area, how much it is damaged based on the severity. And here it is, which was quite helpful for us to find the repair purpose. That's it. Thank you.
Our next presenter would be architect and professor, Madam Deepa Lakshmi. Now, her presentation would be on mapping of historic temples along with the presence of Kanchipuram and iconic features of famous temples. Over to architect Deepa Lakshmi.
When we are talking about reviving our heritage, I would like to thank this pandemic for reviving our way of greeting. Ellarukkum vanakkam. So with this note, I thank CPWD for giving me an opportunity to present the work regarding Kanchipuram before all of you. To start this presentation, I would like to start with the quote by Mahatma Gandhi ji, "A nation's culture resides in the hearts and in the soul of its people." So if you want to know a place, you should know the people first. With this note, I would like to start my presentation on Kanchipuram. As we all know, India is rich in its heritage and which is very priceless, and due to urbanization, we are losing the original value, and there are so many interested organizations that are coming forward to revive our heritage, to preserve, conserve our past for the future generations, which could make it as a reference for their development. So the responsibility of preserving is gaining momentum in the present scenario. When I am talking about architectural conservation, as we saw the previous two presentations, preserving an individual monument is always gaining importance. My research, which I started, was in 2016. I had a question in my mind, why an individual monument alone is getting the attention, whereas the present, that is, there are so many activities that is happening around the monument which need to be documented for the future reference. So conservation with respect to historic buildings and individual structures were always given importance, whereas the present should also be considered. That was the research question that came to my mind, and I started my research in these lines. So quoting few examples, if we see Taj Mahal, Sun Temple, Ajanta and Ellora Caves, Bragadishwara Temple in Tanjavur, Kailashanada Temple in Kanchipuram as well, they are the famous heritage sites, and if you see, only the monuments will be preserved. And if you go around, the urbanization has completely eroded the traces of the monument, which had the impact in the presence as well. Coming to the temple towns in Tamil Nadu, we have Kumbakonam, we have Tanjavur, we have Madurai, and we have so many other temple towns, and we are proudly mentioning about all these things when we go to the other places. We talk about our temple towns, and from a research paper I took this interesting information about the temple. Temples were not only a place of worship but acted as a place of social gatherings as well. It was an educational hub. One of the best example is Kailashanada temple, which was acting as an educational hub during the Pallava period. And celebration of religions and culture also happened in these temples. And so temples were always fascinating for me and for many of us sitting here. This interesting collage of maps which you are seeing on screen, it can be called as the monocentric temple town, which is nothing but Thiruvanekkaval, Srirangam, Madurai, Thiruvannamalai, Thiruvarur and Chidambaram, where the settlement has developed around a single temple. So as we all know, the settlement starts with the temple along the riverside, along the water body. This is an evidence where the settlement has grown along these temples as the center. Contradictory to this confusion started for me was, okay, if there is a single temple, fine. That is called as a monocentric temple town. What we are going to do with the polycentric temple town, as in case of Kumbakonam? I have taken only two, which is Kumbakonam and Kanchipuram. So what will happen? How do we justify and how do we study about this? And then there are so many characters. If one Bragadishwara temple in Tanjavur could tell us so much story, and how, what about Kanchipuram, which has thousands of temples which is hidden? That is a statement which we see in many books, that Kanchipuram is a temple, is a place of 1,000 temples. So this polycentric temple town fascinated, and then we started our journey doing a mapping about the various temples that was there in Kanchipuram. So this is the end product of 1 year of mapping. We were doing this continuously with a team of 20 members, and then we were doing this mapping. We were visiting each and every street in Kanchipuram, and then we were taking the lat long. So if this map shows 353 temples in Kanchipuram, including Shiva temple, Vishnu temple, Amman temple, Vinayagar temple, old and new, all put together. Even if there was a small temple, then it was also mapped. So that in future, as Anupadma was showing, slowly the new development is encroaching, and then the old monuments are eaten up. So at least we will come to know that there was a temple here with this mapping. So this was mapped rigorously, including the new constructions as well. The color coding shows the different deities that was worshipped by the people in that locality. So segregating this map shows only the Shiva temples, which was in number, it is 63 Shiva temples, and I took this as the base for my study. So I didn't touch upon the Vishnu temple because Vishnu temple, the followers of Vishnu are very staunch followers, and then they have a consideration for their own monument. And then if you go around Varadaraja Perumal temple, it is still intact. The conservation process is done by the people themselves. They are following a set of code of conduct kind of thing. Whereas Shiva temple, they are a jolly go person. So the transformation is happening. Maybe I may be wrong. That is what we observed as a team. So what I thought was, okay, let me concentrate on the Shiva temple. So after seeing all this mapping, and there is nothing wrong in calling Kanchipuram as the paradise of temples. So according to the Santana Dharma, this entire town was divided into two divisions, which is Shiva Kanchi and Vishnu Kanchi. Shiva Kanchi had Vishnu temples as well, and Vishnu Kanchi had Shiva temples as well. I'm not going to talk much about Kanchipuram, which is 75 kilometers away from this place, because many of us would have visited. I am just making this presentation in front of you to recollect the memories many of us have with Kanchipuram. And for the people who are hearing it for the first time, let us create a curiosity to go and visit these two temples. So I have named few temples here, but these are the well-known temples. But the mapping showed there are so many interesting temples as well, which are not in the limelight. So that was the intention of the mapping, and then we started. The process is going on, not yet completed. This shows the temples from the 6th century to the 16th century, and now we are moving on to the main theme, the Pallava architecture. Many of you would have come across the characteristic features of Pallava architecture during our history classes in the lower standards, maybe while teaching our kids, or when we are studying our own architectural history, Indian history, we would have come across few of the characteristic features. The 6th to 10th century marks an important period because during this 400 years only, South Indian temple architecture and its culture has grown up enormously. So three important dynasties rose to the power. Chalukyas of Badami, these happened parallelly. Pallavas of Kanchi and Pandyas of Madurai. And Shaivism and Vaishnavism also grew to the power. And then here this is a timeline of the Pallava period from the pre-Pallava dynasty to the British rulers. So what is a notable characteristic of Pallava architecture is that the shift, the transition from the brick or wood temple to the stone temple. This was possible, this was done by Pallavas. So that is a remarkable start for our South Indian temple architecture. Giving it in bullet points, Pallava architecture can be identified by cave temple, the materials granite and sandstone, carpenter's contribution. Why carpenter's contribution? Earlier the temples were made out of wooden construction. So sandstone was a soft material. So in the initial stage of temple construction, carpenters were again employed for constructing these temples in the initial period. Because sandstone was a soft material, so they applied the same technique. Later on, they developed the skill and the transition has happened. And monolithic temple. That is one of the remarkable character of Pallava architecture. Short and stout pillars, unlike what we see in other period where in Varadaraja Perumal temple, which was in the Vijayanagara period, the temples are columns are slender and tall, whereas in Pallava architecture it was short and stout with the lion inscription on it and less sculptural decoration. Since they started with stone construction, they were not able to do numerous amount of art decoration work because they were not friendly with the material. Later they developed that. So this is the temple in Mandagapattu, first of its kind. You can see the less decorated columns. This was constructed by Mahendravarman I, and then he was known as Vichitra Chitta because he was very curious and then he was very inventive. He wanted to do something new and then he tried his level best and he mastered the use of material, and that was transferred to his successors. So this is the first temple of its kind, and the Dwarapalas, what we are seeing on either side, that has become a signature of the South Indian temple till date. We can see these Dwarapalas in the entrance even today. Moving on to the first example, which is Kailashanatha temple. Each and everybody knows, and it is a ASA protected monument and it is a World Heritage Site as well. This is the best example and one of the oldest example of the Dravidian architectural style for the intelligent usage of construction material, with the base of a granite and the superstructure and sculptures were made out of sandstone. As Anupadma was mentioning, still we are not able to find a solution to restore the sculptures because of the unique characteristic of the material. So the interesting plan of this temple, we can see 58 smaller shrines around the temple. We have a Garbhagraha, Antrala, Mandapa, high compound wall. Again the high compound wall has the pilasters of the line pillars, and then we have a Gopuram. As I told you, this the shift from the brick to the stone, from the wood to the stone happened during this period. And the Nandi, the Shiva's Vahana, can be seen in the entrance of the temple. And then the Dwarapalas, as I told you, which was derived from Mandagapattu, which later became a characteristic feature of South Indian temples. So this is the pilasters, which has some half animal deities as well. It was not only lions, they were having many half animal deities were also carved on the outer compound wall of the Kailashanatha temple. These are the 58 shrines which I was talking about, with an octagonal Vimana, which is called as Ashtanga Vimana, which has 8 sides. The specific characteristic feature of this particular temple, as we all know, we can see Shiva in various forms, which has been depicted right from the Tandava Murti to Harihara. All the forms are depicted as sculptural wall panels. This is the first of its kind where the bas relief was done, and we could see Shiva in all different forms. And around the sanctum, we can see beautiful sculptures of Lakshmi, Durga, Saraswati, etc. And undoubtedly this temple was the most ambitious undertaking. I think since they started first, they experimented with all their heart and soul, and then they were able to do a wonderful job, and that is what is reflected in this temple. The other Shiva temples of the Pallava period are considerably smaller, but they have these intricate carvings because they were later developed once they have mastered the material. So Piravadishwara temple, Airavadishwara temple, all those temples are having similar kind of pillars, but in a much more detailed manner. The carvings are very in detail in nature, unlike the one what we are seeing now. So the outer compound wall also has the line pillars, as well as the inner smaller shrines also has the line pillars, which makes it interesting. Various forms of line, which is the characteristic feature of Pallava architecture, which will be seen in almost all temples in the earlier period. Now we are moving to the one of the Vishnu temple, Vaikunta Perumal temple. I would interpret they both are like twins. You can see that except for the individual shrines, the characteristic feature, the material specification, the line pillars, everything, they both are like twins. But this is an 8th century temple which is dedicated to Lord Vishnu, which has a peculiar plan. As architects, when I say plan, only the 2-dimensional feature will come into mind, but this temple is something which has a 3-tier building, which is very, very unique which has a very unique construction, and all the 3 tiers has a circumambulatory path. So the entrance doesn't have a gopuram, and still it is a mystery whether the gopuram is missing or it was not constructed at all. So this is the entrance with a flat roof, and then it again has an Ashtanga Vimana. The main Vimana is Ashtanga Vimana, which is nothing but octagonal in shape. This entrance mandapam was a later addition by Vijayanagara period, so that we can see the difference in the columns. They have not used the lion pillars, which is a unique characteristic feature of Pallava architecture. I would like to relate this particular slide to the next slide, where we call it as architectural climax. Like when we enter Taj Mahal, we used to travel, here. Finally, we will go and we will see Taj Mahal through that small arch. The same thing will happen here. Through this mandapam, when you enter, you will be entering a place where you will be seeing sculptures and wall panels. That is what is architectural climax is all about. What we are teaching students, what we are creating in our projects, it has been done thousands of years before by our ancestors. So this is what I was talking about, the sectional view of the temple, which has 3 tiers, and we can see Vishnu in 3 different forms. Sitting, reclining and standing position, and the topmost tier, that is the standing position, will be open only during the Ekadasis. So we can, and the important feature is that the staircase leading to this are hidden. You won't be able to see the staircase, it won't hinder your circumambulatory path. All the 3 shrines are functional and can be circumambulated. I am talking about the 3 levels. Taking reference from this, we have few more shrines which are 3-tier structure, which is Vaikunta Perumal temple at Uttaramerur, Kudaladagar temple at Madurai, and Rajagopala Swami temple at Mannargudi. Again, they also have a 3-tier system. And this is what I was talking about, the climax. When you enter, you will be at wow. Why? Because you can see on one side the lion pillars, which is very symmetrical, very uniform, small. The scale is something entirely different. On your left hand side, you can see wall panels, which is completely carved with intricate carvings with human figures telling different stories from different events that happened during the king, as well as during the mythical stories are also carved in the walls. So this 1000-pillared mandapa, Egambareshwara temple has the 1000-pillared mandapa. In Madurai Meenakshi Amman we have this pillared hall. All these are a derivative of this particular, we can interpret in that way that this is a derivative, this is the starting point of the pillared hall. So this is what I was talking about. On your right hand side you can see the pillars, line pillars. On your left hand side, if you see, it is all the panels, wall panels. Or one painting, if we are able to, we are trying to do it, and it will take some 6 months if it is an acrylic, it will take 3 months if it is something else, that they have done panels and panels and panels of stories on the entire wall of this temple, which is adorable and which is really admirable. So the sanctum wall is also, the niches of the sanctum wall is also done with sculptures of again Lakshmi, Saraswati and this thing. So we'll be having the one which we see in the niches of the walls, and these walls are called as walls with stories. So it has numerous historical sculptures depicting various events from the mythical stories, and this Ashwatthama doing panels is also seen in Shore Temple, Mahabalipuram also. This one blank panel which you are seeing on the right side, this is showing the absence of hair for the Pallava throne. This is regarding the Cambodian heritage, which is a depiction because the human figures are out of context, and this shows the war between the Pallavas and the Chalukyas, where the one scene depicting that period. And then it has Krishna Katha, and we can see a Chinese traveler sculpture also. Finally, in the beginning, we got the introduction of the design competition of iconic structure. These are the references which we can draw from the temple architecture. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation. Our temples are rich in conveying cultural and mythological values. They're simple rock-cut temples to massive ornate temples. The structural and aesthetic sense can be learned from our ancestors, and the harmonious geometry and its principles from the plans, and then temple complex organization can be done. And as a whole, it is above all the religious beliefs, traditions, spiritual principles. Our temples act as a masterpiece of architectural administration. So I would like to thank for the opportunity and then end my presentation here. Thank you, one and all.
Now that we have 3 architects from CPWD, so they will be giving the presentation. The first one to present is the architect Maheshwari Jayaraman. Her topic of presentation is the current happening topic of Tamil Nadu. Yes, it is Keeladi. The recent excavation proved that urban civilization had existed in Tamil Nadu since Sangam age. Now she will elaborate on this. Over to architect Maheshwari.
Thank you, Ladama. One and all. I am Maheshwari Jayaraman, architect CPWD, Southern Region. On behalf of Central Public Department, I am going to present this paper. I am going to talk on the topic, short note on Keeladi settlement. As you all know that recent excavation of Tamil Nadu, Keeladi, we are finding so many interesting antiquity in this site, and this excavation started around 2013 by ASI, and it's been continued by Tamil Nadu Archaeological Department from 2016 onwards. So in this topic, I'm going to cover overview, which is basically how the time period of this Keeladi settlement and features of the settlement, where I'm going to cover the material, antiquity material, which is oriented to the architecture. That thing I'm going to cover. And third topic is Indus West Vaigai. As we are coming to know that Vaigai Valley civilization is the second civilization in India, we are going to cover with the first civilization, Indus Valley civilization. And wherever people are living, they are going to be with some lifestyle that we are going to see in the art and appreciation. Here I am going to start my presentation with a classical poem of Tamil. Poi agala naalum pugal vilaithal en viyappam vayagum potha vayangu oli neer kaiyagala kal thondri man thondra kaalatte vaalodu mun thondri moothakudi. It is written by Ayanadithanar. This why I am quoting this poem is all the archaeological excavation is based on some literature or stone inscription, and in this particular poem the author is telling that the Iron Age king who got some victory during that period, he can take the pride because his ancestors are from the Stone Age. So this is how the poet is interpreting their knowledge and fact into the words, and these words still now we are reading and we are getting the findings wherever it has been gone on earth. So we are coming to the Keeladi. Keeladi significance, as you all know that this is the first ever intact habitation we are finding in Tamil Nadu, supporting the Sangamera statement, which is literature all talking about Pandya dynasty and their Sangam town, all this thing. Now we are seeing glimpses of that Sangam town in Keeladi. And takeaway, we can say that, as I said, art appreciation, they had a culture, they had a trading. For those things, they would have developed some instrument to do in day-to-day life. That instrument and all you can see and you can correlate that till now, after 2,600 years, we are having the hold of those ancient material. So when we are going to touch the history, we have to know about the time period. Here, our Indian history starts with Indus Valley civilization. The year of Indus Valley civilization starts from 3300 BCE. BCE, now it is calling us before Common Era. From 0 to 3300 BCE, the Indus Valley starts, and it got diminished around 1500 BCE. After that, Mauryan Empire came, and the year of Mauryan Empire is 321 to 185 BCE. If you see that missing link of this Indian history, from 1500 BCE to 321, we don't have any solid evidence or solid civilization settlement inside the India. So now the Kiladi is getting important because this Kiladi period is around 600 BCE. So missing link of Indus Valley to Mauryan dynasty has been intervened by this Kiladi excavation. So location, it is in Tamil Nadu near Temple Town Madurai, 12 kilometers away towards the eastern side, and it is located in the Vaigai river bed. So Kiladi settlement, when I am saying settlement, it is a group of cluster of location. One is Kiladi, next one is Manalur, and other one is Agaram, finally Kondagai. These all cluster located, Kiladi at the center, and northeast corner we are having Manalur, where we are having pottery stations, and eastern side Agaram, where we are having seeing a lot of habitation site and trading activity happening, and finally the Kondagai is a burial ground which is located on the west near a Carmile. In English it is a lake. And Kiladi at the center, it is found to be a industrial town. Next is features of the settlement. In features of settlement I am going to talk about construction. And within I can tell about the brick walls, roof tiles, mud flooring, and Uraikinaru, one of the unique structure we found in Kiladi, which was widely popular in southern part of India. If you go in any Tamil Nadu towns and Kerala, you can see this Uraikinaru. It is modern term ring well. Water management, like a Harappan settlement, here also they had a freshwater line, wastewater or grey water line, and industrial waste. As I was telling, it is an industrial town. Lot of dyeing work and other melting work had happened. So for that, they had separate industrial waste line, which is covered terracotta pipes. So construction. So about the brick, they normally they had two different type of bricks. Only width-wise they were different. Otherwise, it is all same size. And like this small evidence only we are finding right now, but there is no solid evidence we find, like a big structure or full formed house or full formed palaces like that. We didn't find anything here. Only small patches of brick walls and brick tanks we are finding. And the same brick has been used for flooring also. Wherever it is required, they are using brick flooring. Other than that, it was mud flooring. The mud flooring was finished with clay, fine clay plastering. So next is material. Popularly used material in Kiladi is clay, lime, mud, and wood. So when we take a brick, the composition of silica and lime is 80%, and 7% of lime was used. Other minerals were used in the normal ratio. And in plaster, 97% they have used the lime. But the beauty of these bricks are that the long survival they have achieved through the selection process of the material. These people had the material knowledge, how to choose the material and how to process it. That's why the product is still standing alive after this 2600 years. Structures. Basically, we are not finding any full light wall here, but we come to understand like a skeletal understanding of what we are finding in Kiladi. We understand that there was a brick platform and the filling will be happening, and over that either mud flooring they are using or they are having the brick lining, brick flooring they are having. Over that in regular interval they were having some wooden post. Because we are seeing lot of hole in between the brick wall, which may be used for holding this post, and we are seeing lot of nails also, copper nails and other alloy material nails we are seeing. So the researchers are concluding this might be the wooden post employed. Because of wood perishable nature, it would have gone over the period. And roof has been used with rafters. Over the rafter, roof tiles have been placed. Roof tiles are similar to the brick tiles, but it had two holes to tie up with the rafters. And this is a interesting feature of Kiladi, Uraikinaru ring work. Urai means cover in English. This is peculiar to the soil type. As I said, it is in the Vaigai river bed. Then Vaigai was very near to this town, researchers were telling. So the water table, they found it around 1.5 meter to 2.5 meter itself. So most of the ring well depth were only 2.2 meter. So for holding the loose sands, they had this uraikiner. So this cover helps this soil to strengthen the soil, and yet the water will be percolated through the terracotta ring well, and the filtered water they will be getting, and terracotta will also give cool water. So this is a typical construction. So the rings were placed like this. This ring sizes are normally it is 60 centimeter, and height is 43 to 48 centimeter, and mostly it was tapering in nature, and 2 to 3 centimeter thickness, the terracotta thickness were like that. And few pictures for examples. This is a prototype exhibited in Madurai Sangam building museum. So next one is water management. So they do had open tanks lined with brick, and sort of platform and sort of flooring to approach the tank. All this thing we are seeing, eventually seeing here. And they had sequential tanks, open tanks, where industrial locations were there. So they might have reusing of the water, one stage of water and next stage of water, like that. So that also we are finding it here. So another brick-lined open tank. This is a open trench. Drainage system they have used. And this is what the sequential tanks. So from one point to other point it is connected. This is the flooring to access the well. Like this it is going. And this is the closed pipe, terracotta pipes used for discharging the industrial waste. Here you can see that that closed pipe here. Here you are seeing this is the sequence of tank. This is a prototype displayed in Madurai Museum. So this is one is Indus Valley Civilization, West Vaigai Valley Civilization. If you ask any researcher, they would say that we cannot compare. In terms of distance and time, we cannot compare, because Vaigai Valley Civilization ended around 1500, but what we are finding in Kiladi is 600 BCE. And there were evidence till Maharashtra about this Vaigai Valley Civilization. People, they started moving downwards, like still Maharashtra, they could be able to trace the traces of these people. But after that, it's all vanished, and we didn't see anything solid evidence like our civilization throughout India. And also part of this burnt art is not available anywhere in India. So that is the main point here. So art of making burnt work after 1500 BCE, it all vanished throughout India, and now we are finding it in Kiladi. Similar graffiti and pottery with art. Similar graffiti means then period in industrial they do had some graffiti form inscription, and here also we are seeing in the part most of the time it is scribbled with some graffiti, and some Tamili text also we are finding. Water tank and drainage, as I was explaining in the previous slide, the open water tanks and the connection through the open trenches and drainage system, the same is existed in Kiladi, so we can compare both the civilization. So example for the linguistic resemblance, this one is issued by Tamil Nadu Archaeological Department, though they have issued only few resemblance, but there are a number of resemblance are there. They were recording it, and since Indus Valley linguistics are not disseminated, it was kept quiet all this day. And Kiladi finding where we can see the inscription. You see here inscription you can see. So here few of them are before casting the part, the potter would have done, and these are all done by the localites. So these people, both the potter or localite, everyone were literate. So pottery, if you see the terms of size and shape, all are similar. But in Harappa, you see the decoration they have done. It is application. The vegetable dye were applied over the part. But here they did on the terracotta. When the on the part itself, when the clay was very wet, that time itself design has been done and put in the kiln, and the temperaturizing process has been done, and the outcome has been taken from the product. So a few examples in Kiladi pottery section. And this is the red and black pottery. This is very interesting one and very unique to the Kiladi settlement. Researchers were telling that this black coating, no, it is not of application. It was process. And with the vegetable dye, when the clay was very wet, that vegetable dye with some composition they have done, and when the temperature is raised, the thickness of this layer is only 0.6 nanometer. Currently, the contemporary world, we are talking about nanotechnology. Then Kiladi were used to it. Now, nanotechnology now claiming is 0.4 nanometer is the perfect size for nanotechnology. But these people achieved 0.6 nanometer. So art appreciation, we are going to see some precious item. These are all beads available, locally available from some of the thing were imported from other parts. This is a glassware and this is local bead. And gold. Gold is especially, it came from West Asia. It shows that they were trading with other people. And this is weaving industry. They were using their own weaving system, and it has been, sometime it would have been exported also. Lifestyle. Pestle and mortar. Ivory comb. Again, jewels. This seal is made of carnelian. This is from northwest part of India. So easily we can say that Saraswati civilization, where Harappan were moved towards the down, that time the boar was the symbol. Here we are finding the boar symbol with seal. Pastime activity, this is Pagadai Dice. Till now, if any Tamilian is there, you can recollect that till now we are playing the game, hopscotch, all these games we are having. That's why I was telling that the connectivity, the lineage still exists in Tamil Nadu. Terracotta artwork. And trading. So for trading, they had the stone weighing systems, so that were polished, and these are all from exported beads. Conclusion. First intact habitation center to be unearthed in Tamil Nadu, and its history way back to 2600 year old, and only with respect to Kiladi. But if you take Adichanallur, it is going way back to 3,200 year old. And civilization has very indigenous and developed self-sustained urban culture with an industry and script, indicating that people of that era were very highly literate. One second. I would like to thank our STG sir, who has given me this opportunity to present this paper, and thank you one and all.
I call upon architect Saraswati. Now, she will be giving presentation on pre-independence, post-independence architectural marvels in India in southern region. Ma'am, kindly take over.
CPWD Southern Region, senior officers, guest architects, colleagues. I begin my presentation. As a part of Azad Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebration under the directions of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Special DG CPWD Southern Region is continuing the webinar series presenting some architectural marvels of India, showcasing the iconic structures within its jurisdiction, depicting the grandeur, artistic and the technical skills, reflecting the rich culture and heritage of this country. The shortlisted entries subsequently will be published by School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi, as a coffee table book titled 75 Architectural Marvels of India, and would be launched on the 75th Independence Day, that is 15th August 2022. This presentation is grouped into two categories, that is a pre-independence and the post-independence era, depicting various structures within it, be it temple architecture, military architecture, water regulators, public buildings or private buildings. To begin with the pre-independence era, Srivilliputturu Andal Temple, Srivilliputturu, Tamil Nadu, is an example of Dravidian style of architecture with its tall temple gateway, which is 192 feet tall, and it is having the inscriptions, sculptures, and paintings of Chola, Pandya, Vijayanagar, and the Nayak rulers. Jagannath Puri Temple, Odisha, the huge temple complex, is an example of Kalinga architecture, which is famous for its annual Ratha Yatra or the Chariot Festival. Thanjai Periya Koil, Tanjavur, Tamil Nadu, also known as the Perurayar Koil, which was built by Rajaraja Chola I. It is also best known for its World Heritage Site as the Great Living Chola Temples, known for its 16-storied granite Vimana, which is one of the largest in South India. Brahadishwara Temple, Gangai Kondacholapuram, Tamil Nadu, is also a part of the World Heritage Site. This temple shares a similar design and name as the old Brihadishwara Temple of Tanjavur, but it is smaller in size and more refined, with its monolithic representation of Navagragas and a large seated Nandi in the courtyard. Airavadishwara Temple, Dharasuram, Tamil Nadu, is also a World Heritage Site known as the Great Living Chola Temple, is an example of Dravidian architecture. It is a storehouse of art and architecture and has some exquisite stone carvings, famous for its singing steps. Melukota Chalavanarayana Swami Temple, Melukota, Karnataka, built by the Mysore Vodayars. The sculptures and pillars were built in the Dravidian style of architecture. The beauty of the steps leading to the water and mandabas built around the temple, all around the water tank, can be captured, is also seen in many of the Indian films. Lingaraja Temple, Bhubaneswar, Odisha, is a prominent landmark of the Bhubaneswar city. It is dedicated to the Hindu god Shiva, with its tall central tower, which is 180 feet high. It represents the quintessence of the Kalinga architecture and the culminating the medieval stages of the architectural traditions at Bhubaneswar. Arunastamba, or the Sun Pillar, Puri, Odisha, is a tall monolithic chloride stone pillar which is having a idol of the Aruna, the charioteer of sun, on the top. It is said this Arunastamba was originally at the Sun Temple, Konark. Later, it was brought by the Marathas and placed here in front of the Singadwara Lion Gateway of the Jagannath Puri Temple, which is an important landmark. Bucheswara Temple, Korvangala, Karnataka, is a Hosala style of architecture with the sophisticated inscriptions and intricate craftsmanship, with the central sunken ceiling which is highly ornate with concentric cut arch designs. Meenakshi Temple, Madurai, is a prime example of the Dravidian architecture with its covered porches on temples, tall entry gates, towers, the many pillared halls, and the water tank. The Chennakeshava Temple, Belur, Karnataka, which has been built for over 3 generations, took almost 103 years to finish. This is a temple which is having a combination of elements of the North Indian Nagara and the South Indian Hosala architecture, remarkable for its sculptures, reliefs, friezes, as well as the iconography, inscriptions, and history. Ramanatha Swami Temple, Rameshwaram, Tamil Nadu, one of the 12 Jyotirlinga temples, has a strikingly long corridors, considered as the longest among all Hindu temples in India, with almost 1,212 pillars. Konark Sun Temple, Konark, Odisha, dedicated to the Hindu god Surya. The temple remained complex is the 100-foot high chariot with immense wheels and horses, all carved from stone. It is a classic illustration of the Odisha style of architecture or the Kalinga architecture. Hampi Monuments, Karnataka. It's a group of monuments of Hampi in the UNESCO recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site, with Virupaksha Temple, Vithala Temple, Elephant Stables, Lotus Palace, which are known for its art and architecture, following the Vijayanagara style of architecture. Padmanabha Swami Temple, Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala, built by Maharaja Marthanda Varma, is built in an intricate Dravidian style of architecture featuring high walls and the 16th century Gopura, which is 100 foot tall, made in the Pandyan style. Vadakunathan Temple, Thrissur, Kerala, is a classical example of the regional architectural style of Kerala. The temple, along with the mural paintings, has been declared as a national monument by India. Sittanavasal, Pudukkottai, Tamil Nadu. This, we go into the rock cut architecture. Number of megalithic dolmens of the 1st century, it attests the antiquity of the area. You can still find the stone beds used by Jain monks around 2000 years ago. Badami cave temples, Karnataka, built by the Chalukya kings, were carved out of soft Badami sandstones on a hill cliff. The plan of each of the 4 cave temples are linked by the stepped path. The architecture includes structures built in the Nagara and Dravidian styles. It is one of the important examples of the Indian rock cut architecture. Kunanda Rock Cut Temple, Pudukkottai, Tamil Nadu, is a rock cut architecture which is a specimen of late Pallava art and the early example of Chola art. The Mahabalipuram, Tamil Nadu, which is an example of Pallava architectural style. It has many carved out of living stones like the 5 Radhas, mandabas, show temples, giant open air rock reliefs of descent of the Ganges, which stand proud along the seashore. St. Thomas Cathedral Basilica, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, also known as a National Shrine of St. Thomas, designed as a neo-Gothic style, favored by British architects in the late 19th century, known for its stained glasses, materials in thick woodworks and marbles and granite. Velankani Church, also built by the Portuguese sailors as the earlier one, was built in the Gothic style of architecture. Later, lots of extensions has been done, and later in 74-75, as it's mentioned, extensions to accommodate the multilingual pilgrims was also done. Charminar, Hyderabad, Telangana. This is a grand architectural composition in the Indo-Sasanic style, built of granite and lime mortar with stucco ornamentation. It formed the centerpiece around which the city is planned. Golkombas, Vijaypura, Karnataka. This is famous for its dome, the largest dome constructed before the modern era. 8 arches created by rotated squares for interlocking support to the domes talk about the technical skills which was there present in that period. Makkah Masjid, Hyderabad, Telangana, one of the largest mosques in India, built by Muhammad Qali Qutub Shah with a capacity of 10,000 people. It is said that Qutub Shah commissioned bricks to be made from the soil brought from Mecca and used them in the construction of the central arch of the mosque. Padmanabhapuram Palace, Takkalai. It is remarkably known for its wood palace, exceptional example of the indigenous building techniques and craftsmanship in wood, a style unparalleled in the world and based on historic building system which is unique to the region. Tirumalai Nayakar Mahal, this is again the palace architecture as a Padmanabhapuram palace. The Tirumalai Nayakar Mahal, Madurai, Tamil Nadu, is a blend of Dravidian and Rajasthani style. The interior is richly decorated whilst the exterior is treated as a more austere style. It is famous for its giant pillars. Mysuru Palace, Mysuru, Karnataka. The architectural style of the domes of the palace is commonly described as Indo-Sasanic with blends of Hindu, Mughal, Rajput and the Gothic styles. Kanudukatan Palace, Karaikudi, Tamil Nadu, famously known as the Chettinad Palace, exposes a traditional Chettinad architecture with its ornamental lights, teak wood materials, glasses, marbles and crystals which were imported from overseas for the construction of the building. Coming on to the military architecture, the Golconda Fort, Hyderabad, Telangana. built by the Kakatiya dynasty, initially a mud fort, was expanded by the first 3 Qutub Shahi sultans into the present structure. It is a fortified citadel known for its vicinity of diamond mines. The Bidar Fort, Karnataka, is a fusion of the Islamic Persian architecture could be seen there. The security inside the Bidar Fort was foolproof, which is evident through the glacis, triple-layered moat and thick laterite stone walls. St. Angelo Fort, Kannur, Kerala, also known as the Kannur Kota, is a fort facing the Arabian Sea. The Archaeological Survey of India has found thousands of cannonballs weighing several kilos during its excavation in 2015, which is supposed to be believed to be buried as a part of the military preparedness. Kondareddy Fort, Andhra Pradesh, is a part of the Kurnool Fort and was used as a watchtower and a prison. Vellore Fort, Vellore, Tamil Nadu, is known for its grand ramparts, wide moat, and robust masonry. The first significant military rebellion against British rule erupted at this fort in 1806, citing prologue for First Indian Independence Mutiny in 1857. Fort Dansbar in Tranquebar, Tarangambadi, built by King Raghunatha Nayak, is a Danish-style military architecture characterized by large halls, columned structures, high ceilings, and projecting drapery. Manora Monument, Tamil Nadu, it is an hexagonal structure with 8 stories raising up to 23 meters high. The monument looks like a pagoda with arched windows, circular staircase, and eaves separating one story from other, surrounded by its walls and a moat, and it resembles like a fort. It is also a lighthouse for the ships. Coming on to the water regulators, the Grand Anakat Kallanai Dam, Tiruchirappalli, is the ancient dam built across River Kaveri. It is the 4th oldest water diversion or water regulator structure in the world and the oldest in India in use. Swastik Big Well, Tiruvellare, Tamil Nadu. The well together appears like a symbol of a swastika. The peculiar feature of the well is that it ensures privacy for those taking bath in the 4 enclosure levels. Mullai Periyar Dam, Thekadi, Kerala, is a masonry gravity dam on the Periyar River. It was constructed to divert waters eastward to the Madras Presidency area. Krishnarajasagar Dam, Karnataka, built across River Kaveri, is also the main source of drinking water for all Mysore city on almost the whole of Bangalore and Tamil Nadu. Coming on to the public buildings, transportation buildings, Purachi Talaivar Dr. M.G.R. Ramachandran Central Railway Station, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, also known as Chennai Central, is the busiest railway station in South India. It is a combination of the Gothic Romanist styles that has been declared as a heritage building. Chennai Egmore Railway Station, Chennai, which is also formerly known as Madras Egmore, built in the Gothic style, is one of the prominent landmarks in Chennai. Madras High Court, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, which is the 2nd oldest high court in India, is an example of Indo-Sasanic architecture. Kalapani, Andaman and Nicobar Islands, the cellular jail, is the was a colonial prison in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, India. Many notable independent activists were imprisoned here during the struggle for India's independence. American College, Madurai, Tamil Nadu, is one of the oldest colleges in India. The red brick buildings in the Sasanic style blend with the natural surroundings constructed by the British architect Henry Irwin. Marina Beach Promenade, Chennai, Tamil Nadu. Since the early 19th century, a number of public buildings were constructed fronting the breach, which is depicting the hybrid socio-political influences that created the Indo-Sasanic style of architecture. These institutional buildings are landmarks that have been utilized differently through time. Coming on to the city planning, French colony Puducherry, previously French-occupied colonies. The French colony layout is a grid-based pattern with parallel street at right angles, which gives us the feel of the French cities. Currently, most of the old houses are transformed into heritage homestays or hotels or restaurants. Kiradi, Tamil Nadu. The latest excavations at Kiradi in Sivangai district points out to the ancient civilization that thrived on the banks of Vaigai River belonging to almost 600 BC. Moving on to the post-independence era, on the temple architecture, Dauli Shanti Stupa, Dauli Bhuvaneshwar, Odisha, which is also known as a peace pagoda, is a Buddhist structure built on the opposite hill of Dauligiri. It was built through the Indo-Japanese collaboration. The Valluvar Kotam, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, dedicated the classical Tamil poet and philosopher Thiruvalluvar. It is the city's biggest Tamil cultural center. The hallmark of the monument is the 39-meter-high stone car, a replica of the famed temple chariot of Thiruvarur. Nrityagram Dance Village, Bengaluru, is the first modern Gurukul for Indian classical dances. Dance frames architecture, bringing out special relationships between two disciplines of creativity. It is an example of vernacular style of architecture. Jatayu Earth Center Nature Park, Chadayamangalam, Kerala, is a nature park, holds the distinction of having the world's largest bird sculpture, which is of Jatayu, the character in the famous epic Ramayana. Talking about water regulators, Vaigai Dam, Madurai, Tamil Nadu, is one of the few dams which is not constructed in between two mountains. So this dam completely depends on its own concrete strength. It is built across Vaigai River. Mathur Aqueduct, Tottipalam, Kanyakumari, Tamil Nadu. The construction period is 1966. It is a concrete structure supported by 28 huge pillars, the maximum height of the pillars reaching 115 feet. The truss structure is 7 feet height with a width of 7.5 feet. Gandhi Mandapam, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, is a series of memorial structures built on Sardar Patel Road in Adyar. The first structure to be built on the premises was the memorial to Mahatma Gandhi. Later, 4 other memorials were also added. Ambedkar Mani Mandapam, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, is a memorial dedicated to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the architect of the Indian Constitution. It is a memorial and an auditorium which is identified in the Adyar Creek area. APJ Abdul Kalam Memorial, Ramanathapuram, Tamil Nadu, in the everlasting memory of Dr. Kalam, who is always reflected the simplicity, depth, and calmness of Rameshwaram through his life, which is showcased in this memorial. Marina Beach Stretch, Chennai, Tamil Nadu. It is the longest natural urban beach in India. Most of the statues, landmarks, and landscaping in Marina were constructed post-independence. It also happens to be the location of many iconic memorials and monuments in the modern era. Birla Planetarium, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, is a large planetarium in Chennai, built in memory of the great industrialist and visionary of India, B.M. Birla, is the most modern planetarium in India. Anna Centenary Library, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, is a state-of-art library which has a capacity to accommodate 1.2 million books. This project has been awarded the LEED Gold rating by the Indian Green Council. LIC Building, Chennai. The 15-storied building in Chennai is the first skyscraper built in Chennai and a famous landmark in the city. It is known for promoting modernism style of architecture. Cyber Towers, Hyderabad, was the first ever to be built for promotion of information and technology. The Cyber Tower building is divided into 4 quadrants with a large fountain in the middle of the quadrants. TCS IT Park Siruseri, Chennai, Tamil Nadu is one of the largest IT facilities in all Asian regions. Intelligently designed and developed in an eco-friendly way, this innovative design demonstrates environmentally friendly processes, techniques, and systems to meet the requisites for energy efficient buildings. ITC Grand Chola Hotel, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, themed after the traditional Dravidian architecture of the Chola dynasty, is also known for its energy efficiency practices, which earned it a platinum rating from LEED and a 5-star Griha rating. L&T headquarters, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, acknowledged as the outstanding corporate green campus, has a significant tree carbon sequestering capacity. Global Training Center, Mysuru, Karnataka, is a training facility for the Infosys built by architect Afis Contractors. It has been designed and built according to the principle applied in the Doric orders of Vignola. Infosys IT Park, Bengaluru, Karnataka, again by Afis Contractor, is also a building which has got the LEED Green Building Rated certified building. Vidhan Sauda, Bengaluru, Karnataka, is the largest legislative building described as a Mysore Neo-Dravidian and incorporates elements of the Indo-Sasanic and Dravidian styles. Tamil Nadu Government Multi-Super Speciality Hospital, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, originally built as Tamil Nadu Legislative Assembly and Secretariat Complex. The complex was later converted into a super speciality hospital. Last but not least, this sturdy built heritage of our country has been and always will serve as a proof to the evolutions for the generations to come. This continued legacy of creating landmark built structures spreading over centuries indeed tell its story to the world and later the generations, the aspirations of India at 75. Thank you.